Stand Up.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to today's episode of Stand Up. I hope you had a great weekend. Happy Monday. It's Thanksgiving week as I'm taping this, the Monday show, starring columnist and talk show host Carrie Kaufman from Las Vegas, Nevada. I met her when I was out there in Las Vegas back in September, and she's great, really smart, great conversation with Carrie coming up. It begins at 42 minutes, and if you want to skip right to news and clips, that starts at 17 minutes in. But before that, as I do every day now, or at least I'm making the effort in this new age, this new era, this moment that we are in, it's the good stuff. Hope, happiness, humor, inspirational ideas, quotes, thoughts, clips, and the like. That's what we do here on The Good Stuff each and every day. So, if you're having a bad day for any other reason, you're feeling down, anxious, alone, desperate, scared, worried, concerned, shamed, any of it, feeling bad for yourself for a moment, well, now it's time for The Good Stuff, which, along with a healthy diet, a little bit of cardio, and some journaling and meditation, should get your day off right. Okay, well, that's my practice. That's the good stuff, and I'm trying to be a good role model here as well. So very soon I'll be able to figure out how to instruct you, how you can listen to whatever segment of the show you want, chapters and such. There's a way to do that, and I'm going to figure it out and give you the options. So if you just want the good stuff, just news and headlines, or just the interview, you could do that piecemeal, or, of course, as many of you do, listen to the whole show because, hey, I do put a lot of work into it, and it does kind of have a flow to it. So thank you very much to all of you bumblebees who listen all the way to the end. You are the best. And now just a quick invitation, an announcement. That's right. March 27th to 30th, Las Vegas. Join me and some of your favorite Stand Up with Pete Dominic guests and friends in Las Vegas for Pod Jam 2. Yeah, baby. It is on a 3-day experience. I'll be taping podcasts. We'll have different performances and, most importantly, organized outings and experiences for you to have fun with. All the details are coming, but there is a link in the show notes for subscribers and non-subscribers alike. It's $300 3-day event. Thank you very much to Cassie Rice and Ophir Eisenberg, who have been working hard to help me get this together, and now it's official. I'm announcing it. Pod Jam 2 is on in Las Vegas. All the details are yet to come, but please help us by buying your tickets as soon as possible to let us know how many people we should expect at this gathering. We had a great time last year. It's going to be so much better this year, and I think we're going to need it more by the end of March as well. Gonna be a long winter is my expectation, but I'm here for you each and every day of it. As the darkness approaches, each day gets shorter all the way to December 21st, and the question has become online, maybe you can break out your Christmas tree before Thanksgiving. I know a lot of us do it after Thanksgiving, but that's the conversation. Hey, I need some joy now. Let's start it early like it's Venezuela, baby. They actually mandated it. The autocratic dictator there, Maduro, he announced Christmas was starting early. You know what? I think it sounds like a good damn policy. So whenever you want to start your Christmas, I think that's fine. Pod Jam 2, it's on. The ticket link should be in today's show notes. If it's not there, it will be in the next couple of days. I'm just going to keep plugging it pretty much every day, annoying you with it. I hope to see you there. It was a really magical, wonderful experience. So many people got to meet each other for the first time, and I think community is the most important thing, which is why I'm leaning so hard into building this one and making it a great place, a safe place for people to feel seen and heard and connect and make new friends all over the country, because I think you're going to need them. Well, we all need them, always. So let's get to the good stuff right now, shall we? I want to start this off with a 4-minute clip, a scene from a film. I never even was familiar with it, but this is Charlie Chaplin's, apparently his most commercially successful film. It's called The Great Dictator. And someone on YouTube played the audio with Hans Zimmer's Inception, which makes everything better. But the film is a political satire black comedy written, directed, and produced by Charlie Chaplin. And it's basically kind of making fun of Hitler. And he is making this huge speech to everybody, and I think it just captures exactly kind of the feeling right now really well. And I don't know if it's too much to start off the show of the week, but I'm going for it. Here it is.
I'm sorry, but I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I should like to help everyone if possible. Jew, Gentile, black man, white. all want to help one another. Human beings are like that. We want to live by each other's happiness, not by each other's misery. We don't want to hate and despise one another. In this world, there's room for everyone, and the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate, has goose-stepped us into misery and bloodshed. We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. Our knowledge has made us cynical, our cleverness hard and unkind. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. Without these qualities, life will be violent, and all will be lost. The aeroplane and the radio have brought us closer together. The very nature of these inventions cries out for the goodness in men, cries out for universal brotherhood, for the unity of us all. Even now, my voice is reaching millions throughout the world, millions of despairing men, women, and little children, victims of a system that makes men torture and imprison innocent people. To those who can hear me, I say, do not despair. The misery that is now upon us is but the passing of greed, the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people. And so long as men die, liberty will never perish. Soldiers, don't give yourselves to brutes, men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, and what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines. You are not cattle. You are men. You have the love of humanity in your hearts. You don't hate. Only the unloved hate. The unloved and the unnatural. Soldiers, don't fight for slavery. Fight for liberty. In the 17th chapter of St. Luke it is written, the kingdom of God is within man. Not one man nor a group of men, but in all men, in you. You, the people, have the power. The power to create machines. The power to create happiness. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful. To make this life a wonderful adventure. Then in the name of democracy, let us use that power. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world. A decent world. That will give men a chance to work, that will give youth a future and old age a security. By the promise of these things, brutes have risen to power, but they lie. They do not fulfill that promise. They never will. Dictators free themselves, but they enslave the people. Now let us fight to fulfill that promise. Let us fight to free the world, to do away with national barriers, to do away with greed, with hate and intolerance. Let us fight for a world of reason. A world where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. Soldiers, in the name of democracy, let us all unite!
Yeah! The great dictator. Very good. More than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. I loved it. Was it too much? Was it too much to start? I don't know. I really liked it a lot, so I hope it wasn't too much. Now, I've got something else I want to share with you. One of the most important things I hope to be able to do here is to create this community. And so I've been reading and thinking a lot about the importance of community and how to create this community. So I'll be playing a lot of clips and reading a lot of things as well about that. Here's LeBron James stressing the importance of community in his speech to 2020 graduates.
The community needs you. And when I say to the community, I mean your rec league, your church, your youth group, and most of all, your school. They need you. Most importantly, building your community is how you change the world. Unfortunately, the system does not solve the real problem. Education, violence, racism, they must be solved in the street. Class of 2020, I know the last thing you want to hear right now is stay home. That's not my message to you. My message is stay close to home. Maybe not physically, but in every other way possible. Pursue every ambition. Go as far as you possibly can dream. And be the first generation to embrace a new responsibility. A responsibility to rebuild your community. Class of 2020, the world has changed. You will determine how we rebuild. And I ask that you make your community your priority.
Yeah, good stuff from LeBron, who I admire a lot. I like that guy quite a bit. I think he's an excellent role model, and like everybody else, not perfect, easy to pick anybody apart, but I think he has done just exemplary work in so many different ways. And more importantly, to the point there about community, I guess I like to think that while you're a member of our community, and whether you're active at our Hangouts or on Discord, or you'll join us at PodJam or connect with each other, or you just listen to the podcast, that you're also hopefully a member of several other communities, those similar to ours, which are kind of virtual and traditional, as well as those in your local communities with your friends, families, and as LeBron James said, at your school, often a great place to start. So I like that. I thought that was a good one. Here's another quick clip that talks about the value of community. This is from a guy named Simon Sinek. You might have heard from him. You might subscribe to his YouTube channel. He's got millions of subscribers. He's an author. He's given a TED Talk, seen over like 60 million people. And I like what he has to say here. I think I'm going to read more into his work. Here's Simon Sinek.
I have learned more about what it means to be human, civilian, whatever you want to call it, from the military than from anybody else who doesn't wear a uniform, which is I understand, and I learned a long time ago, which is my own sense of camaraderie and brotherhood and sisterhood and community is the thing that helps me stay inspired, is the thing that saves me when I'm in a dark place, is the thing that motivates me. And it's hard in this modern day and age to find an intense sense of community or love in the general population. And I think technology makes it even more difficult, because we're connected, but we're not connecting. Right. And when I started hearing stories from people that I met in the military about brotherhood and sisterhood, and again, you call each other brothers, I wanted to learn, quite frankly, because my complaint was, why can't I have that? Right. Why can't we all have that? Why can't everybody have that?
Well, I think that we can, and I think that we do right here at the stand-up community, with our community, that I'm so excited, and that's why I'm feeling so positive, even in this scary, scary moment that all that's happening in our country and in our world. So I'm feeling really good about it. I know a lot of you are struggling, and I'm hopefully going to be able to shine a light as much as I can here on a daily basis through this show and with all that we're doing together. And I can't do it without you. So thank you very, very much. And welcome to new subscribers to our show and the community as well. I want to give a shout out to, I'll call him Rob. He's a new paid subscriber, and he emailed me last week and said, I've been listening to you ever since your appearance on Joe Rogan's show. Wow. How about that? He said, I've heard you talk about that appearance and it wasn't that you didn't think it was great. Well, had you not done that appearance, I would not have started following you. I've since stopped listening to Joe Rogan. I started listening ever since you started your podcast. I had to take a break around a year ago because I lost my job, needed to cut back spending, but I'm back making money again. And you've been a solid foothold for me in my journey from being a former Christian and a former Republican. I'm extremely shy and delicate, Pete, but I think I'm going to try your hangout tonight. Your courage, along with your work in the community, getting the community aspect of the podcast going has been inspirational. I really need to be a part of something because I don't think that I can go through the next 4 years alone. And I got back to him and asked him for a little bit more insight, and he said, well, it's pretty simple, LOL. I'm still processing some trauma with losing my job, turning 50, overcoming alcoholism, trying to manage chronic anxiety and depression, losing all my friends to Trump, including my wife, along with losing my parents, in-laws, and others to Trump. I really think if Trump would go away, then most of my problems would as well. Wishful thinking mostly. Well, Rob, I really appreciate your email, your insights, your vulnerability, and your honesty. And I am happy that you are here. Welcome to this community. You are definitely not alone in terms of losing so many people to this insidious ideology that Trump has birthed and led for years now. So welcome and thank you. I hope you like it here. And now, finally, from the YouTube channel Wise, I played a few of these, I think, at the beginning of last week. Just a bunch of quotes read by Morgan Freeman, and I'm going to react in real time to them. Here we go.
If you are not falling down occasionally, you are just coasting.
Right. I fell down.
First, it hurts. Then it makes you stronger.
Right, but sometimes it hurts for a long time.
Work at your job and make a living. Work on yourself and make a fortune.
Right. Don't measure your happiness in success and financial wealth.
There will always be someone who doesn't see your worth. Don't let it be you.
Be good to yourself. Be compassionate to yourself.
Do what no one else can do, and you will become what no one else can become. Remember, 5 years ago, you dreamed about being where you are now. Think about it.
Wow. That really hits close to home.
If people treat you like an option, leave them like a choice. Value experience over possessions, because memories are the real treasures of life.
That's right. Spend your money on vacations, not cars.
So many people love you. Don't focus on the people who don't.
Don't say that to a comedian.
Playing it safe is the most dangerous thing you can do in life.
Ooh, deep cut.
Never be embarrassed to struggle. There is absolutely no shame in working hard to get to where you want to be.
There you go. I like that. And by the way, there's no shame in quitting either. Somebody asked me in an interview I just did last week about advice for young people. And that was my advice. You can quit. If it's not going well, you don't like it. Maybe you're not actually good at something that you thought you would be. You can quit. If you really want it more than anything else, and there's nothing else you want, maybe not. I'm not encouraging people to quit. I just don't want people to feel shame in quitting, whether it be a job, a relationship, or just about anything. It's okay. It's okay. You can try something different, adapt, follow a different dream, set different goals. There doesn't need to be a tremendous amount of shame in quitting, is what I kind of mean. Unorthodox advice, but I think it's worth considering for, especially for young people. All right. Well, that is all I've got for you here on The Good Stuff. Now it's time to get to headlines and clips from the weekend. So if you don't want to hear it, you want to skip ahead to the interview, that's fine. But I'm here for you with all of your news and headlines every day. The second reason you should listen to my daily podcast and support it with your paid subscription, patreon.com/Pete Dominic. News and clips, but first, a message from my friend, listener, supporter, and professional voiceover artist, Pete Coe.
Hey there, stand-up listeners. Do you sometimes wonder why we don't all live on the same planet? Tired of politics, clownish politicians, and even our own pending doom? Are you looking for a way to support independent media, but not sure how? Well, if you like what you hear on this podcast, then we have the answer. Sign up now to become a stand-up Patreon member. You get all the benefits of the episodes you love, plus access to our members-only hangouts, as well as our amazing Patreon listener community. Subscribers like Cindy in Chicago, Illinois.
I've been listening to Stand Up for a long time. It's a great show with so many great interviews, and I learned so much. When Pete started this podcast, I had the chance to become a Patreon member. I was happy to support him, even when he shows up at the hangouts with that creepy Robin costume.
You said it, Cindy, and thanks for being a subscriber. Go to patreon.com/Pete Dominic or visit the show's website at standupwithpete.com and click on the big red button that says Support Stand Up.
Wow, thank you very much, Pete Coe and Cindy, for putting that together and do what they said. That's very, very cool. We'll do more of those. And if you want to voice your own, then absolutely reach out to me. I'll connect you with Pete, and you could make a promo. It makes a big deal, too. I'll share those on social media. So it'd be super helpful if you just want to write down like 10 or 30 seconds of why you listen or how you found us. Make it funny, make fun of me, something like that. Send it our way, and I'll connect you with Pete, who produces these for me, which is awesome. Also, hire Pete Coe if you have any need for voiceover for your organization, your event, your company. He is so, so good. All right. What happened this weekend? Well, let's start with the big climate summit and climate deal at COP29 in Azerbaijan. Over the weekend, the world agreed to a new deal where wealthy countries pledged to provide $300 billion annually by 2035 to poorer countries to help them cope with the increasingly catastrophic impacts of climate crisis, a figure many developing countries criticize as vastly insufficient. The agreement came after more than 2 weeks of bitter divisions and fractious negotiations thrown into chaos by boycotts, political spats, and open celebrations of fossil fuels. At points, there was fear talks would implode as groups representing vulnerable small island states and the least developed countries walked out of negotiations on Saturday. But at 2:40 a.m. local time Sunday, more than 30 hours after the deadline, the gavel finally went down on the agreement between nearly 200 countries. The amount pledged, however, falls short of the $1.3 trillion economists say is needed to help developing countries cope with the climate crisis they've done the least to cause. And there's been a furious reaction from many developing countries. I'll share with you a clip of a fiery speech from India's representative coming up. But that was, of course, big news over the weekend. In other international news, Hezbollah fired hundreds of rockets and projectiles into Israel in retaliation for Israel's strikes on Beirut, wounding 7 people and one of the militant group's heaviest barrages in months. Some of the rockets reached the Tel Aviv area in the heart of Israel. And meanwhile, an Israeli strike at an army center killed a Lebanese soldier, wounded 18 others in the southwest of Lebanon. And the far right continues to gain momentum in Russia, where a far-right pro-Russia candidate has taken a surprise lead in the first round of Romania's presidential election, with preliminary results putting his pro-Europe rival in close second. So closely following the Romanian presidential election, but that is not a good sign, of course. Headlines from the Ukrainian-Russian war. The Ukrainian army is outnumbered in men and equipment is one headline. Another from Forbes, 50,000 Russians are poised to attack 20,000 Ukrainians in Kursk. Keeping a close eye on that, as always. And countries remain divided as the 5th UN Plastics Treaty talks begin. I think I want to talk to somebody about that, but delegates from 175 countries gathered in South Korea this week for the 5th round of talks aimed at securing an international treaty to curb plastic pollution. Those are some of the international stories that I'm following along with. Well, here's one more. Thousands are protesting against sexual violence in France. Thousands marched across Europe and Italy protesting violence against women and girls, which remains largely unreported due to the impunity, silence, and stigma and shame surrounding it. But 2 days before the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, which was designated by the United Nations for November 25th. That would be today, actually, and these demonstrations were over the weekend. More than 400 organizations reportedly called for demonstrations across the country amidst widespread shock about this high-profile mass rape trial that you may have heard about. I've not talked about it here on the show, but it's pretty horrific. And I thought it was important that I mentioned thousands of people demonstrating across France and Italy to protest violence against women. All right, those are your international headlines. Let's come back to home, where the first nominee for Attorney General has stepped down. You know this by now. Matt Gaetz is now giving pep talks and holiday wishes on Cameo instead of being the top cop at the Department of Justice. And of course, you probably know Trump has now nominated Pam Bondi, who has done his bidding before in Florida, where she was Attorney General. So you've got that, a whole bunch of other appointments. I think plenty of great reporting on that, so I'm not necessarily going to go through them, but we will definitely talk about them at tonight's Hangout. There is a Hangout tonight at 8 p.m. Did I mention it already? You'll get the link in your subscriber email. If you're a subscriber, hope to see you tonight. We can talk about those latest appointments, and as always, we'll have some fun as well. Bird flu has been found in California raw milk. Don't drink raw milk, folks. After bird flu was detected in a retail sample of raw milk produced and packaged by a farm in California, they warn consumers to avoid consuming anything from that same lot. So generally not a great idea. And how about this? Blue Sky has overtaken Threads as liberals flee the MAGA trolls on Twitter or X. Are you on Blue Sky? If you're on social media, you should be. I'm loving it over there, but social media startup Blue Sky exploding as academics, journalists, and left-leaning politicians are abandoning Elon Musk's Twitter in search of bluer skies. Now the platform has surpassed Facebook Meta's Threads in user numbers. Apparently, usage of Blue Sky in the United States rose more than 500% following President-elect Donald Trump's win, raking in 3.5 million daily users. The platform still only has around 21 million users as of November 22nd, but Apparently, they're growing by about 1 million users a day. Really interesting what's happening over there. If you're on social media, or even if you're not, maybe join Blue Sky. It's kind of a fun place to be. I'm there, and so are a lot of my friends. We'll create a list of listeners who are on Blue Sky, as well as our favorite guests as well, as soon as I can figure out how to do that. But if anybody wants to help, I know a few of you, Tina, Kim Nyborg, and others are on there, and so I'd love to create those lists. You could do that, right? Anyway, Blue Sky is a big deal. That's a big headline. And finally, over the weekend, a lot of people were talking about taking in a double feature, which is two new movies out, Wicked and Gladiator 2, and so everybody was calling it Glicked and trying to compare it to Barbie and Oppenheimer, Barbenheimer. Remember that? Well, that was all the rage. Did anybody do it? Anybody go and see either, much less both of those movies? I mean, who can even afford one movie? It's like $700 by the time you're all is said and done. But Wicked and Gladiator 2 did not outperform Barbie and Oppenheimer, but doesn't mean it was a bad weekend at the box office. The adaptation of the Broadway musical opened about $114 million and doubled what Gladiator 2 got, which was about $55 million, slightly below expectations. But a big weekend at the box office. Those are the headlines I've got for you. Now it's time for your news clips, sound I've gathered from the weekend. First, here is that fiery speech immediately after the gavel went down from India's representative at COP29. Her name is Chandni Raina. She slammed the $300 billion as abysmally poor, a paltry sum, calling the agreement nothing more than an optical illusion, unable to address the enormity of the challenge we all face. And here it is.
And the proposed goal shall not solve anything for us. In fact, we have to implement ambitious NDCs and economic challenges that we need to navigate and address the adaptation needs. The amount that is proposed to be mobilized is abysmally poor. It's a paltry sum. It is not something that will enable conducive climate action that is necessary for the survival of our country and for the growth of our people, their livelihoods. And I'm sorry to say that we cannot accept it.
Well, eventually they did accept it and they made a deal, but I thought that was important to share with you. Now let's go to some of the Sunday shows. Here it is on Face the Nation. You had Senator Tammy Duckworth. She was on CBS talking about this nominee for Defense Secretary named Pete Hegseth. At this point, you probably heard a good bit about him, but of course, she is a veteran who served in combat and lost her legs. She does not think that Pete Hegseth is qualified for the job, dismissed his military service as low ranking, and argued that Trump choosing to nominate him is an insult in light of the troubling accusations that have surfaced about him. Let's take a listen to that now.
Having served in combat yourself, what do you think of the idea that women make fighting more complicated? That was specifically what he focused on.
Well, it just shows this lack of understanding of where our military is. You know, he was a pretty low-ranking guy in the military, and he never had a command position. He was a platoon leader, I think, once or twice, but he never even commanded a company. And so this is a man who is inordinately unqualified for the position. Remember that the Pentagon is 3 million servicemen and women and civilians. It is a over $900 billion budget. He's never, run anything anywhere near to that size. And frankly, women actually make our military more effective.
The question of character has also come up in regard to this leadership role. Mr. Hegseth has acknowledged that he paid a woman back in 2017 to quiet her accusations of sexual assault. He claims it was consensual sex. I'm sure you've read that Monterey police report, as we did here. It refers to the offense code as, quote, rape victim unconscious of the nature of the act. It details both the accusers and Hegseth's version of events. Here's what Senator Mark Wayne Mullins said it shows. 2 people flirting with each other. Is the committee going to speak with the victim to ask if this was a misunderstanding?
Well, that will be the decision of the Republican chairman of the committee next year. I hope that we will, but I suspect that they, again, will roll over for Mr. Trump. Frankly, I will raise those questions. Remember that we've just fought over a decade of fights and overhauled the military and its treatment of military sexual trauma. It's frankly an insult and really troubling that Mr. Trump would nominate someone who has admitted that he's paid off a victim who has claimed rape allegations against him. This is not the kind of person you want to lead the Department of Defense.
All right, there you go. Senator Tammy Duckworth not pulling her punches at all when it comes to him, and neither is Fox News contributor. This is on Fox News, a woman named Leslie Marshall. She made an impassioned case against Pete Hegseth on Fox News' Media Buzz yesterday. Listen.
Leslie, media obtained this police report from California authorities from back in 2017 and says, Hegseth appeared very, very drunk. He got into a fight with Jane Doe. That's how she's being referred to, that she repeatedly said no. And a rape kit confirmed the sexual encounter. Again, Pete Hegseth says this was consensual.
I dreaded talking about this today. I met Pete a long time ago. We spent middle of the night waiting to go on during 2016 before the election, and I like him as a person, with all due respect to my former colleague. We know that there were 3 cases of adultery for Pete Hegseth, and it is relevant, and the reason why it's relevant is Article 134 of the UCMJ considers adultery against the military, which the Department of Defense is part of. You can't lead an entire organization and all these people if you can't lead by example. 1. 2, I am a rape victim, and I can tell you there's a reason 1 in 10 rapes go unreported. And it's very difficult for a woman to go in and have a rape kit done. It's physically, mentally, and emotionally very difficult to go through that process, as I have. And I can tell you that, just very personal in my deep core, somebody doesn't do that with their husband and their kids in the hotel, texting their husband. Somebody doesn't go into the hospital and subject herself to that. And I have to say, I as a woman and as a victim, I believe the victims. And this is a problem for me, the sexual impropriety. And then on top of that, although Pete has an incredible military career, he doesn't have the leadership career in the military that I feel the Department of Defense requires as their head.
Well, one thing.
Wow, that was pretty powerful. What do you think of that? She is that couldn't have been easy because she knows the guy and she's on the network that Hegseth was on. So I give that woman credit. I don't know who she is, but I do give her credit for that moment. But you know what? So here, let's go to a Republican senator who's going to have to confirm Pete Hegseth. He plays it down along with so many others.
But he's faced these allegations.
This is on ABC's This Week with Jonathan Karl.
These allegations of sexual assault dating back to 2017. My understanding is Donald Trump didn't even know about those allegations until after he named him. Is that your understanding?
John, all these are, as you said, are allegations. It's amazing how this comes out. Pete is a very talented individual. I talked with him earlier this week. He told me, John, about how many people had written to him and said, look, I was thinking about getting out. We have a huge recruitment problem, a huge retention problem in the military. I was thinking about getting out, but now that you've come to lead us, Pete, I'm going to stay in. That's the type of inspirational leader we need to see. Don't let these allegations distract us. What we need is real significant change. The Pentagon has been more focused on pronouns than they have lethality the past 4 years. We need to get back to business, and I think Pete is just the person to do it.
Ew. Okay, well, there you go. So that's just a few reactions on Hegseth. We'll see if he makes it through the confirmation process or not, or we'll see if this week we hear a lot more chatter about him, and I certainly hope we do. I'm really loving this Sarah McBride, the first trans woman to serve in Congress. She's been doing rounds of interviews with all different kinds of media outlets, and she's smart as hell. Here she is on MSNBC over the weekend.
Talk about what it means for you in this moment to walk into that hall. To be in that chamber and to sit at that desk to represent the people of Delaware?
Well, I didn't run to be a first. I didn't run to make history. I ran to serve this state that I love and to deliver for Delawareans. I ran to continue the work that I've done in the Delaware State Senate, where I passed paid family and medical leave and secured the largest investment in our state's Medicaid program since the Affordable Care Act passed. And I did that by bringing Democrats and Republicans together. I'm in Congress to deliver for my constituents, to make healthcare, housing, and childcare more affordable. I'm so grateful to have this opportunity. I think on November 5th, Delawareans showed the country what I've known throughout my life, that in our state of neighbors, we judge candidates based on their ideas and not their identities.
All right, there you go. Sarah McBride. Thought that was good. Oh, and I just found this. Could have kept it in the earlier, along with the Pete Hegseth clips or with Tammy Duckworth. But this is Canada's top military commander. It's a woman. Her name is Jenny Carignan, and she called out Republicans for questioning women in combat. She said after 39 years as a combat arms officer and risking her life in many operations, she can't believe that in 2024, we're still having to justify women's contribution to defense and service in the military. Here it is.
After 39 years of career as a combat arms officer and risking my life in many operations across the world, I can't believe that in 2024, we still have to justify the contribution of women to their defense and to their service in their country. And all the women sitting here in uniform, stepping in and deciding to get into harm's way and fight for their country need to be recognized for doing so. So again, and that, folks, is the distraction, not the women themselves. So, again, just wanted to be clear.
All right. Well, we appreciate you being clear. There you go. That was good. Good stuff. I'm going to have to reshare that everywhere. And finally, I think that probably the most important conversation I've heard so far, I'm sure there's plenty of other really great stuff happening. I'm certainly engaging in lots of great conversations post the election. But my favorite, and I know many of you have mentioned this to me and seen it as well, is Jon Stewart talking to Heather Cox Richardson on his podcast, The Weekly Show. Here's the beginning of the conversation. I'll probably play more later this week.
Was this something that caught you off guard? Was it something that was expected? What was your experience on the night?
I don't think it was unexpected. I think we all had hopes that Americans had heard just how bad things would be under Donald Trump and would decide, even if they didn't like the policies of Harris and Walz, that they would go that direction. And that's not what happened. And I think there are lessons to be taken from that. The most important for me being that we're in a swirl of disinformation in this country, so that a lot of people who voted for Trump really, truly voted for things that were the opposite of what they say they wanted. And that's a real problem going forward.
Yes. That's so important. I've made that point so many times. I feel smart because I heard her make it. Let's go back into it.
Right. In terms of what exactly, because it's almost, if I'm thinking about kind of, and I boil it down to the commercials that I was watching for all the candidates, it feels in some respect that what they told you to be afraid of was better than what we told you to be afraid of. You know, they were basically selling a migrant invasion, a trans invasion. I mean, almost every commercial touched on either one of those. And it seemed as though from the left, it was, we are selling you that democracy is going to be over. And it seems like the people went, I'm more afraid of the migrants than I am of our system.
I fully agree with that. Here's Heather Cox Richardson.
Being eradicated. Does that feel accurate?
Well, that may be accurate, but one of the things that I think we're going to have to grapple with going forward is that there has always been so much wiggle room in the strength of the United States that it was okay to backslide a little bit because the guardrails were there to keep us on track. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people can't imagine a world in which those guardrails aren't there, but they really aren't. I mean, what we have done is we have voted to get rid of the ones that are left because they have been so eroded over the past 40 years, really. So I think
what would those guardrails be, Heather, if I could?
Well, I'll get there, but I do want to speak to what you just said about the things to fear. I think that's really important, that the right wing emphasized things that ordinary Americans had to fear that were not real. And they erased the things, and they erased the things that are real.
Yes. I've said it so many times. Man, do I feel smart right now listening to Heather Cox Richardson. They were afraid of things that aren't real and not afraid of things that are real.
Objectively, our economy is fabulous. It's one of the best economies, or the best economy we've had since the 1960s. Real wages for 80% of Americans have gone up. Income for the top 20% has gone down in that period. Those are generally things that most voters would like, but they don't know that. They think the economy is terrible. It's a failing economy, and that Trump is going to come in with his tariffs and save that. And every economist will say that's exactly backward. So I think you have to grapple with the fact that people have been put into a position of something that political theorists, especially coming out of Russia, called political technology, which is that you can get people to vote away their democracy or to vote for the people that they are told to vote for, so long as you create a false world for them to believe in. And I think that that's really what we have seen right here.
Yes, the whole interview is so good. I'll probably play more clips throughout the week because I like it so much. That's the weekly show with Jon Stewart. That's Heather Cox Richardson, who is very, very good and deserves all the respect that she gets. Okay. Well, somebody said when I played George Carlin last week, who was it? I think it was Paul Wesley, said, more George Carlin. You ask, you receive.
You know those people on the Jerry Springer show? Those are the average Americans. Oh, yeah, believe me, below average can't get on the show. Can't get on. Below average are sitting home watching that shit on TV, getting ready to go out and vote, filling out their sample ballot. People are fucking dumb. You can say what you want about this country, and I love this place. I love the freedoms we used to have. I love it. I love that. You know? I love it when it didn't take a fucking catastrophe to get us to care for one another. I love the fact that we're on camera all the time from all angles. But you know what? You can say what you want about America. And I say I love this place. I wouldn't have it any other way. Wouldn't live in any other time in history in any other place. But say what you want about America, land of the free, home of the brave. We got some dumb-ass motherfuckers floating around this country. Dumb-ass motherfuckers, you know?
All right, George Carlin, there you go, Paul and everybody else. Now it's time to get to my guest. That's why you really came, right? That's the power of the show, the social capital, my ability to get these amazing people on day after day, sometimes two in one day. And I'm very excited to have Nevada, Las Vegas' Carrie Kaufman back on the show. She's a journalist. She's done it all, and you should check out her new Substack, carriekaufman.substack.com. Of course, she is a journalism professor. She is a columnist on the Nevada Current, as well as a talk show host herself for a long time. Real smart, always a great conversation. Check her out on all the social media outlets. More links to Carrie's work there. Let's kick it off right now with my conversation with Carrie Kaufman. There she is, Carrie Kaufman. It is great to see you. We met in Vegas, of course, and I have become a fan and a follower of her Substack and everything she's saying and writing. And I really wanted to talk to you post-election because there's a lot to say. Hi, how you doing?
Hi. Yeah, hi.
You've been crying. Did you cry at all? Crying's good. People say they don't cry. I did
cry.
Good.
I did cry.
Good.
It took me like half a day, and then I was with my daughters in Chicago, and I just got up and hugged one of my daughters, and it all came out.
How old are your daughters?
22. They'll be 22 in a month.
They're twins. That's right.
Yeah, they're twins.
Do you have a preference?
No.
Come on.
I think only men ask that question.
Come on, Carrie.
No, I do not have a preference.
It's just us. They're not going to hear.
No, I don't.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's a different world for girls and women and boys and men, and we can talk about gender, and I've been really thinking a lot about that, especially boys and men, in terms of trying to get to them. But I know that you're doing something that I wanted to just start up with because I've been hearing a lot of people talk about the issue with America isn't necessarily a lot of the conventional wisdom of what went wrong, but that there's something wrong with our education system. Yeah. And specifically, we can talk about different things, but specifically, they're not teaching civics. You are. This is something you take really seriously. So diagnose the problem, if you will.
Okay, so the problem is that since the 1980s and really since the 1990s, 2000s, we have been testing everything a student does. Like I would not be surprised if we tested how often they went to the bathroom, right? And we do not test civics. It's not on any of our tests. And each state has a different structure. And so it's really hard to have a national test that teaches Nevada's structure, New York's structure, and what have you. So we don't teach it anymore because all the teachers are just trying to teach to the test. And so we have a lot of disengaged people. I don't know if I told you this, but the reason I started this, and this is a story that I tell all the time to people, but in 2020, my daughter, who was, I think, 17 at the time, came home from work and said, Mom, I want to write a letter to the mayor to defund the police. And I was like, okay, but you know that she's not our mayor, right? Like, we don't actually live in Las Vegas. We live in unincorporated Clark County. Las Vegas is actually a very small town, relatively speaking. The Strip isn't even in Las Vegas, but most people don't know that. And I explained all this to her, and then she looked at me and went, Mom, you are not doing your job. If I don't know this, and I'm your daughter, and you talk to me about a lot of stuff, then how are my friends supposed to know this? And so that's got me kicked off on, oh crap, what can I do? How can I reach her generation? And it took a few years of trying and failing until we hit on Civics Radio Network.
Civics Radio Network aims to do what?
We do a cohort every summer. We actually just did our pilot this past summer, but we're doing a cohort of 20 to 30 kids every summer and teaching them the basics of civics and teaching them the basics of journalism. And then that's the boot camp part of it. And then we spend 4 weeks actually building a podcast, doing a podcast. I give them assignments. I pay them. That's a really big thing for me. Wow. Because they're interns. They're doing a job. And I give them assignments. We check back in with each other a couple times a week and we get it done. We held the podcast because of the election, but it's going to run starting next month.
Let me take a shot at trying to diagnose what went wrong or what the problem is in America because people don't understand civics, don't understand specifically the role of government. And if they do understand anything, they hate government. For a long time, I've wanted to, Carrie, do this pro-government propaganda film or project where you go into the actual bureaucracy and you talk to the actual people about what their jobs are. Now we've got a president that is going to bring on a whole bunch of people that are going to want to destroy government, and they are going to fuck around, and we are going to find out what all those people did because they won't be there to do it anymore. Indeed. And I feel like the hatred towards government, the antipathy against government, really at all levels, always needing somebody to blame, and the lack of understanding of what government is there to do is the problem that I focus in a lot. Can you pick up that thread, or am I missing it?
You are not missing it at all. It's Reagan's 9 words. I'm here to help and I'm from the government. And since then, we have been dissing anything that government does, including teachers, by the way.
Yeah.
But the best example for me was when the pandemic happened, Las Vegas shut down. Like, this entire town shut down. Most of the state shut down. And there were people who were calling into unemployment, couldn't get through to unemployment. The Unemployment Commission had, I think, less than 10. The Unemployment Commission, the agency, the state agency, had less than 10 people on staff. They had antiquated systems. They had antiquated computer systems. I think they bought them in the 90s. They were not prepared. They didn't have a phone system that worked well, right? They were not prepared for the influx of hundreds of thousands of people calling them to get on unemployment because the economy has just shut down. And people got mad at them. And my answer was, no, you should be mad at Reagan. You should be mad at the whole system that said government is the problem, so we're not going to fund government anymore. And we're going to squeeze it down so we can put it in a bathtub. Yeah. And then when we need it, it's not there, and people are angry.
And we need it every day. We don't need it just when there's a massive unemployment,
we do need it, yes.
A pandemic. You need public health, public transportation, public education. What else would you say about what's wrong with our education system? I'm pointing to the fact that civics isn't being taught, but this is just a conversation that we've been having a lot here on my show lately, and I'm pretty interested in it. It's a hard ship to turn around. It's obviously a hard thing to fix. I've been talking about education policy for years and years, but at least we used to be arguing more about, like you said, testing, class sizes, curriculum arguments of all sorts. But now we're actually, at my board of education, I'm having to fight back other parents about things that are not happening in the schools. They go up and say this is happening, and all the teachers, all their students, like none of the kids are asking for this. None of the teachers are asking for this. And it's just a made-up thing by a few parents in the town to divide the town, to create and manufacture controversy so they can take over the board and destroy our public education system and replace it with Jesus and an AR-15.
We have that here. A couple of Moms for Liberty people just got elected to the board of.
Oh, congrats! It's going to be real fun. Yeah, they're fun.
But I know. But I think the real issue here is we are a huge school district. We do not, and we're a poor school district, really, right? Like there are people here, most definitely there are people here who make seven figures, right? But there are people here who make in the 20s, $20,000, right? And there are families here who have 2 and 3 jobs. The culinary union average, I looked this up this week for something else I was doing. The average hourly salary for somebody in the culinary union is $26 an hour. You can't live on that. So you have to have at least 2 jobs in order to do that. That means you're not home with your kids.
Right.
And there are so many social issues. Also, housing is really expensive. If you have to keep moving, that means your kid has to keep changing schools. And so they're not getting the same education, and they don't really care at some point, right? So there's all of these social problems that schools are asked to fix, and we need a larger solution. We need Health and Human Services from the state talking with the education department in order to help fix those problems. But nobody wants to think in that big of a solution. They want teachers to do something about it, or they want the superintendent to do something about it, but they're not thinking, or they're thinking about curriculum because they're all former teachers themselves who are on the state board and what have you. So they're not thinking in terms of, no, we have to get people psychological services. We have to pay people more. We have to exhort our biggest industry to pay people more. $26 an hour isn't enough. If they earn more, they can spend more time with their families.
That's the problem more than anything else. People on the right often talk about the nuclear family and family values and all that. The bottom line is the issue is that you can't live on one income, much less 2 often, and have somebody home. I could talk about that or anything with you for a while, but you've posted, I think, 3 posts over at your really impressive, smart Substack since the election. And one of them, I think this is the most important diagnosis of what went wrong, because there's all kinds of things that people are saying, and it depends on who you trust and believe. I think civics is one issue, but the other issue is what you wrote about in a piece titled "Disinformation Has Spun Out of Control, and it may have started the end of democracy." Summarize this piece.
I'm not hyperbolic at all.
I think it's the main problem. Like I said, I see it in my own town, and I see it nationally, and I see it everywhere. I see it from listeners sometimes. They check with me, and it's only getting worse, seemingly. So how do you see it?
I don't see the disinformation. I stopped engaging with it a long time ago. I used to be the person who would listen to Rush Limbaugh so that I knew what the stupid people were going to say on Facebook the next day. Like, it was very clearly one followed the other. But clearly there are people out there, and I run into them every once in a while, who just don't know that there are people out there who don't know that Trump was indicted, much less actually convicted for something. There are people out there who were like, this is partly a civics thing, but abortion stopped under Biden, so that's Biden's fault. They have no idea how the Supreme Court works, and that this has been 4 decades in the making. And I run into people who are like, what do you mean that he's going to deport people? That's not true. And I'm like, he's saying it, but what they're hearing is something completely different.
And there's so many other examples of it. And how do we teach? It happens every day. They're eating cats and dogs.
Right. They're eating cats and dogs, and people believe it. People are siloed into their okay, here's the thing that Rush Limbaugh did. has stayed with us. He said, I am telling you the truth. And anybody who tells you anything different from what I'm telling you is lying to you. And then he proceeded to lie to us. And people believed it. And then they didn't believe the truth. And that has metastasized. It's been used. It's been weaponized. And that's how we got here. Truth is not a thing anymore.
How do we wrestle it back?
I don't know. Turning off the internet. It's the only thing that I can actually think of, right? Or it was actually being wrestled back before Elon Musk bought Twitter. They were doing a really good job of making sure that untrue things didn't get through. There were fact checks. They either got pulled out or there were fact checks on the tweet. And then Elon Musk came along, and now we have this huge right-wing social media thing. And there's nothing we can do about it because this is what pisses me off. Because in the 80s and the 90s, we deregulated the media. And even though Twitter was a very important media conglomerate that affected us all, there were no regulations that said he couldn't buy it.
Yeah, I feel like we keep diagnosing in this conversation other things or jumping to other things that are clearly huge issues. Anything else you want to say about Elon Musk? Because I feel like he was the game changer in so many ways. Obviously buying Twitter, but then endorsing Trump, then campaigning Trump, then spending millions and millions of dollars, buying people's votes basically. And now he's like by Trump's side all the time. And the damage this one man has done is incalculable, it seems.
I agree with that too. I agree with that. I'm watching to see what happens when Trump gets tired of him, because Trump does not like to share the spotlight. But Musk has a lot of power over him, so I'm not really sure I'm watching that. But yeah, he had a lot of there were a lot of Russian bots on Twitter that went away after the election, Twitter X, and he let them be there, whereas the regime before that would have taken them down. Like, they would have been much more vigilant.
So let's talk about your letter to Seth Moulton, which is great. It was weird. I was on CNN a couple weeks ago, and somebody had brought up the beginning of the end for Joe Biden was the pullout of Afghanistan when the suicide bomber blew up and killed like 16 soldiers. And my opinion is that's bullshit. Or even if it wasn't bullshit, the idea that Republicans only care about dead American soldiers when a Democrat's in charge, but don't make a peep about it when a Republican's in charge, really irked me. And they played this clip of Seth Moulton as an argument. And they're like, well, he's a veteran. I'm like, I don't give a shit. I just came from a veterans benefit. I know a lot of veterans. They don't like being used for political purposes this way. And Donald Trump thinks they're all suckers and losers. So but that wasn't, I don't think your letter was not about his service or veterans issues. But the point is, just because he is who he is doesn't mean that he's right. That's what I want to, I'll get off my soapbox. Your letter was something different. Correct. What was he?
My letter was about him blaming trans people and woke people for the loss. It drives me crazy that what the Republicans stand for is hate, right? At least they stand for something. We know the Republican brand. We know that they want that their constituents are very rich people and they want to give them tax breaks and they hate immigrants. It's very clear who they are. Democrats don't seem to stand for anything. And when we lose, we start the circular firing squad.
Yeah.
And so at the very least, this was part of the circular firing squad. Who are we going to throw under the bus? But also, trans people did not ask to be attacked. There was over $250 million spent from the Trump campaign and its affiliates attacking trans people during this election. They didn't ask that. They didn't ask to be put in the spotlight. And now Seth Moulton is talking about and actually Kamala Harris didn't really talk about trans people that much either. But Seth Moulton is reacting to all of the attention that the Republicans gave to trans issues and saying we should abandon trans people. And that's ridiculous on so many levels.
I fully agree with that. And I made the argument that Jen Psaki, and I think you're making on her show yesterday, that there's so few trans people there, and this issue of trans kids in schools wanting to play sports, like in some states there isn't any, or there's one. But now my opinion is a little bit more nuanced because that was a specific fight at a school board. And I don't know what to do. I did what I thought was best, was to defend vulnerable kids. Like, a trans kid is vulnerable, almost most of them. Some are really confident and outspoken and proud, but you know, the very few that there are, or even gay kids, and obviously you can speak to this better than I can, but like they generally want to be left alone. And sometimes you're confused. We're all confused in adolescence about who we want to be, what uniform we want to wear. Am I a sports guy? Am I art guy? Am I theater guy? Am I gay? Am I straight? I don't know. And the idea that they were being attacked, I stood up with others and defended them. But it only got worse. Like, even defending them just dragged it out. I don't know what to do about that issue. I do feel like spending $184 million making it be a big deal made it a big deal, even though it wasn't.
Right. Even though it never was. But I guess my issue is that the Democrats then go, oh my God, all of this dust that the Republicans scooted up in our faces, we have to pay attention to this dust. And I'm like, it's just dust. Right? They just did that on purpose. You don't have to pay attention to that. Do what you do. And I gave a list in that particular piece about Seth Moulton about what Democrats stand for. They stand for, or people with morality stand for. They stand for human rights for everybody. They stand for bodily autonomy. They stand for a living wage. There's a whole bunch of things that voters say they want, and Democrats can't seem to get on board and support because they're too wishy-washy. They just want support from here and there, and they'll change with the times. And that you can't do that in today's world.
Moving forward, what do you think? You just answered it. That issue is not going away.
I think it will. I honestly do think it will. There have been CRT. Remember CRT? Like that went away. I think that these are just the ideas, the hatred, the attacks of the day. We cannot fall into supporting or reacting to the attacks of the day. We just need to push them aside and say, these are the attacks of the day. We need to know who Christopher Rufo is, right? We need to know what he's going to do next, but we can't let ourselves spend time, saying CRT isn't a thing, or CRT isn't a thing in grade schools, or trans people are the reason we lost, or whatever, right? We have to focus on what we do stand for, not reacting to frivolous attacks. So that's the going forward to me that the Democrats have to do, and we'll see what they do. But that's the going forward for me. We stand for you. And Harris was saying that. It just got lost.
Now we're in this current situation that we're in, and I just fear that we're going to misdiagnose everything, and I'm already hearing so much of it. And I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't know what's right or wrong. What else are you hearing that you think is just way off in terms of diagnosis from, we abandoned working class people, to any other messaging that we did or did not do as Democrats? To get out the vote doesn't work. That's why I came out to Vegas. That's why I wanted to go to other states. My understanding was, of course it works. It's been studied. It's effective. It works. Democrats did the best get out the vote campaign I think they've ever done for Kamala and up and down the ballot. And it seems like Republicans and Trump had nothing, and they still won. So I don't know what's right or wrong. What other diagnoses do you think are being...
You know what? I have talked to people who have said, I've talked to people and I've read about people in other states who have said, not one person came to my door. Now, it may be that the get out to the vote effort was focused on calling people, and we were all sick of that by the end. But we still want people to come door to door and talk to us. So there's that part. So maybe the get out the vote effort wasn't as good as we thought it was, or wasn't as strategic as we thought it was. But there's also, we need to counter the misinformation. And that's the part that I'm struggling with, because if all you're seeing is your social media that is telling you lies, and the people who are telling you the lies are saying anybody who tells you differently from me is lying to you, I don't know how to fix that. We just made a circle.
Yeah, exactly.
But what I'm expecting next is that people will be deported, that people who have brown skin and Hispanic last names will be rounded up, whether they are citizens or not. And if they have an accent, for sure they'll be rounded up. I am worried about police. This happened in Nevada under the first Trump administration, that police were cooperating with ICE. I think it's a 203G agreement. They would stop somebody and be like, oh, you're Hispanic, we're going to bring you in. And then they would check to see if they were legal or not, or if they were wanted by ICE. And they'd call ICE in. I expect that to happen again. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be very ugly. If we just look at what Orban did, what Viktor Orban has done, what's his name in Turkey has done, then we know what to expect. What drives me crazy, honestly, is that there are people who don't want to. There are people who want democracy, right? Who are very passionate about this and who voted for Harris, who would have voted for Biden, who keep saying, okay, the rule of law is still the rule of law. We're gonna look at the law and fight this. And I'm like, he's just gonna ignore the law. Yeah. It doesn't really matter. We have to look at this with real eyes. And yes, it's horribly depressing. So I read that stuff and then I read my fantasy books afterwards and I feel better.
That's your go-to fantasy.
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot.
Yeah, at this point it is. I've never read fantasy books before Trump.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everybody seems to be finding something to distract themselves with, which I think is good in a lot of ways. You know, we can't be so obsessed with this. It's just
but we have to know it. We have to be brave enough to know it. And then put our shield back on.
Yeah, what does that look like? Oh, sounds exhausting.
But you do stuff. This is why you do your show.
Yeah, no, I'm not. It's my work. It's my identity. But it still sounds exhausting. I don't think I've reckoned with the fact of how exhausting this is going to be, and then how to regulate it for myself, for my audience, for the daily show that I do. I'm shifting all kinds of things and trying all kinds of things, but really trying to listen as much as I can, as always, too. Who are you listening to? You said Tom Hartman and Ruth Ben-Ghiat. What are they saying? Both regulars on my show.
They're saying this is how authoritarianism works, and this is what you have to remember. Masha Gessen had a really great piece in the New York Times a couple of days ago that was also really depressing, telling us what to expect next. I need that realism. I am not going to be the person that says, oh, I had no idea this was coming. But what I struggle with is what to say to the people who voted for Trump. Did you see that thing that Reuters wrote about Muslims in Pennsylvania and Michigan are really pissed off at Trump's cabinet picks because they're all pro-Israel cabinet picks? And I'm like, I'm sorry. I wanted to fly to Dearborn and be like, I'm sorry. You didn't vote.
Yeah.
Because you wanted to teach Joe Biden a lesson, and you think you really thought that Donald Trump was going to
I would want to fly there, and I would ask him one question. And fair enough if they don't know that because they weren't paying attention. It's not fair because I think people shouldn't be apathetic. But I would have been like, did you not know about the Muslim ban the last time he was here? He immediately put a ban. That's the most extreme idea I can imagine outside of deporting those that are here. But you voted for the guy who wanted to ban people of your religion over Gaza, not thinking that he would do way worse than she would.
He will do way worse, yes. Also, we didn't know necessarily what she thought. This was Biden's policy. She had, at the very beginning, late October of last year, she gave a speech and said, we need to do a ceasefire now. And that was pulled back, right? She never gave that kind of speech again. So I didn't necessarily know, like she was in a real bind, right? She couldn't say, no, Biden is wrong. She was part of the administration. She had to go with that policy. But I don't know what she would have done. The other part of this is that Netanyahu has been ramping this up, right? Because Netanyahu, okay, this is only my thing. Netanyahu wanted Trump to win because Trump winning gives him total freedom to now attack the West Bank and take over the West Bank. And he's been doing that since the election. They are going to raise Gaza and make it a resort town. They have gone into Lebanon. It's suddenly, when they went into Lebanon, I was like, oh, I see. From the river to the sea does not stop at the Golan Heights. It actually goes further north. I think there is an agenda there, and I think that Netanyahu played the U.S. and Jewish population in the U.S. and the Muslim population in the U.S. in order to achieve his agenda, which is he wanted carte blanche, and Trump would give him carte blanche.
Yeah,
that's my view.
Yeah, no, I think that's very true. All right, listen, I'll let you go. I want to keep talking to you. I'm so glad that you're in my life and on the show. I learn a lot from you and reading from you, and I love our conversations, and you've got your finger on the pulse, and you're doing the work. You're always doing the work, Carrie. Take whatever time you need, but keep doing the work, educating young people and the rest of the public out there in Nevada and everywhere else. Everybody can read and follow you on Substack and learn more. I so appreciate you joining me, as always.
Thank you very much. Let's do it again.
All right, I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.
All right, there you go. Carrie Kaufman, You're Overthinking It. CarrieKaufman.substack.com. That is the name of her Substack. I don't know if I mentioned that. She's great, and I was so happy that she joined us. Go let her know that you heard her here on the show on social media. Follow her, support her on her Substack. And that is all I've got for you. The good stuff, headlines and clips, and a great conversation with a very smart and important, influential person, Carrie Kaufman. That's all I've got, you guys. I can't do without you. Hope to see you tonight's Hangout Mondays at 8 p.m. I won't have one on Thursday because it's Thanksgiving and you don't want to come, but we'll make it up somehow, some way, maybe even over the weekend. But I will talk to you hopefully tonight. Thank you for your support today. Go write a rating and review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts if you haven't. Followed me on YouTube, TikTok, Blue Sky, Threads, and all the rest. And I will talk to you right here tomorrow. Be well. I love you, my bumblebees. John Carroll taking us out.
Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know what's right. They'll keep right